All right, guys, welcome back to Excel Advanced for Accounting. Today we're going to be looking at Chapter 3, which is dealing with formulas. Now, this section is by far the most important, I would say, when you're using Excel to, help you do accounting a lot more easier. Reason being is because especially for those people who have trouble calculating or make mistakes when punching numbers in a calculator, Excel, just by punching in a formula or just by punching in a sequence or an equation into Excel, it will automatically calculate it and it will be precise. Okay, so that's all chapter 3 is for today, is just understanding the formulas, understanding cell references, and also understanding errors that can happen when you're dealing with Excel. Okay? So a few things that I want you to know per se is going to be these formulas right here on the left. I do need you to know how to do a cell reference, okay? Which I'll show each one and how they work and how they function. So I just want to make sure I lay out everything so that we can go ahead and touch upon each formula. So again, you definitely cell reference is your best friend, because you don't want to type in your formula or type in any number. Using cell reference is going to help you, because if you already have a formula, if you already have a number that you've already entered in a cell, you could just click it instead of having to type extra numbers. Now, if it's like a million numbers, like if remember when we were looking at chapter 4 with all those packages, yeah, you typing in those numbers, you can accidentally type in a wrong answer and get an error. So cell references are your friend when you're dealing with formulas, period. Okay? And you can also manually type in your equation as well. Excel understands the functions of regular math. If you use the negative, if you use the minus sign, it will subtract. If you use the plus sign, it will add. If you use the slash sign, it will divide. And lastly, the little asterisk here is going to be your multiplication, as well as parentheses. Now, Excel understands all of these functions and does exactly what you ask it to do. Now, if you have a keyboard that has the number keys on the, I believe is the right hand side. If you don't know what I'm talking about, that's okay. Don't worry about it. But I know that in class, like, you have what's called the number keypad, and it has the essential formulas for you, or the little symbols for you on the side of the keypad to be able to do the same functions. It has the equal sign, it has the plus bar, the division, the multiplication. It has all of that for you to utilize with easy. Okay. Now, again, is it recommended that you know how to do the number keypad? It only allows you to enter in data just a much more quicker, instead of using the top bar. You know how on the keypad or on a laptop, especially on a laptop, you have the numbers aligned at the very top. Okay. Now, pushing those numbers can be very difficult, because you have to go from one to another to another to another. You're going to be chicken pecking, we call it, to get the numbers into the cell. Whereas if you understand and learn the number keypad, you'd be able to type in the numbers a lot quicker using more than one finger. Now, again, it is preference. You do not need to know it. It just is something that if you do go into the future, that would be a very useful tool to be able to do, because you could type in your formulas a lot quicker using the number keypad. Okay? Other than that, besides doing a manual math equation, Okay, so how Excel operates is it's going to operate just like regular math, right? It does follow a line of order of operations. So again, if you guys remember that math thing, I don't know if you guys remember, it's called PEMDAS, where it goes parentheses, exponents, multiplication, division, addition, and subtraction. I think that's what it is. PEMDAS. If you guys remember that order of operations, right? Excel recognizes that exact concept. So they suggest if you're doing a really long formula, they highly recommend you to use parentheses, because when you use parentheses, it does the parentheses first and then any other equation after that. So again, they follow the same rules of order of operations as it does in real math. Okay, and when we dive into the accounting portion, we will be creating a super long, complicated formula, and it will utilizes about maybe 3 sets of parentheses. Okay, so we'll dive into that once we get into the accounting. So behold yourself. Okay. Other things I want you to learn is going to be the auto sum, or the equal sum key feature. So being able to add up a column is very, very crucial when you're dealing with accounting. It is probably the number one formula you will use, because most of accounting anyways is piecing together tables. When we go into learning what a trial balance is, you need to add up all your debits and you need to add up all your credits. So understanding that very main concept, you're going to be utilizing the sum formula, and it's going to be the easiest formula that you will learn. It's also taught in your book because it is widely used and the most common formula to use. Okay. When we're going into accounting, it is also very, very important that you understand how to do equal round. What is equal round, you want to ask? Equal round is basically when you create a formula, right? If you're multiplying something or dividing something, sometimes you're not going to get an even answer. And what equal round does for you is, if you want a rounded number, that's what it will do for you. And you can either do it to 2 decimal places, 4 decimal places, 6 decimal places, whatever you want to name it, okay? And I'm going to show you the difference between doing equal round and just typing in the formula and using Excel to format the appearance. And there's going to be a huge difference between using the equal round and just punching in the formula the way it is, okay? And then other things that we will be looking into is such as payment. That is by far, it's a little more advanced accounting when you're utilizing payment. This is kind of more for, when we're doing business loans. Maybe we need a car loan, or if we take a personal loan, this can apply, because you want to also understand what it means to have a payment and how long is it going to take you to pay. Also, it's also going to allow you to calculate the interest. So this is definitely, I think it's definitely something that you want to understand, because when we dive into, let me see if I remember, I think it's chapter 10, we're going to be looking at interest. What happens when we get a bond, okay? Of course, we're not going to be using payment, but however, you can use payment when we have a business credit card, right? How long is it going to take us to pay off a credit card if we were to just use it and just pay it off and pay it off one time, okay? You can see how the functionality of what a credit card can do for you, right? And that's why payment is very, very important. All right. Next thing is, I think it's okay. I don't think it's super necessary to use an if conditional function. Now, what if can do for you is it can allow you to search up a specific criteria and pull up the data for you. Okay, so it is similar to VLOOKUP, except VLOOKUP is a little more advanced. You have to apply a lot more criterias, and you're going to be searching in more than one area. With the if function, what that does is, if you're going to ask Excel, I want to know if this value is either equal or greater than to a specific value, what do you do with that information? Do you say yes to it? Do you say no to it, right? We'll look more into detail on what the if function does for you. And you can also, I believe there is an exercise in the book that shows you how to utilize the if function. All right. And then other ones I want you to know is definitely the today one and the now formula. So today is going to be very useful, especially if you can't remember the shortcut. You can just type in today and it will pull the information for you. Same thing with now. Now it's going to give you the date and time. And then every time you open up your file, it will automatically update it to the most current and recent time that you get, okay? So that's going to be very useful, especially when you're dealing with, billing and statements, okay? What time, or even packaging, you need that timestamp. So this is a very important function for you to understand. Other things I want you to also show you as well is understanding cell references. Now, there are 3 different types of cell references, okay? There is called a relative cell reference, which, hold on, I did need to expand my window here so you can see the full word. Relative cell referencing. So what relative does is every time you punch in a formula, it's going to recognize a pattern and it's going to go in a sequence. It's going to take the information afterwards, okay? I'll show you and I'll explain what that means. Absolute is where you want to have a constant variable, okay? Or having one number be the same throughout your entire formula. That's where you're going to use an absolute cell reference, meaning you want this cell to be locked and to use that number for the rest of your equation, okay? And then a little one's going to be more advanced. It's called the mixed cell references. So this is where you're locking maybe a row or locking a column. I'm not going to have you guys be super, you don't have to really know that unless you're filling a big table that has multiple features or has multiple information to extract. It doesn't really apply to you guys as much. I just want you to understand relative and understand absolute for now. Until you can understand how those 2 cell references work, that's where understanding mixed cell references is going to apply. But I just want you guys to recognize it for now that there are 4 different types of cell references. Relative, absolute, and there's 2 mixed, whether you're locking a row or locking a column, okay? And then lastly, I want you to understand what happens when you punch in the wrong calculation, or what happens if you punch in the wrong value. This is what's going to happen. Excel's going to automatically recognize when you're trying to do a formula and something is wrong with your formula. It's going to pop up errors in your little window. And it will also give you a little notice saying, hey, boom, are you sure you want to continue with this formula? Because this formula is missing information. All right. So again, we recognize what the pound signs mean. It means that your window is just not big enough to display everything. That one is not really an error. That one's more like, I need you to open up the windows a little bit bigger because we can't display the information. That's not really an error. That's more of you just need to adjust your window. If you were to enter in a wrong value, you're going to get the the pound sign with the value in capital letters. Okay, if you entered in the wrong text, it's going to give you the pound sign name with a question mark on it. And then lastly, if you're having a formula that has inexistent data or something that you've typed in, maybe you typed in the formula correctly, but the information isn't there, you're just gonna get a pound sign with a not available indication. So these are just your indicators of what you would see when you type or punch in the wrong formula, X, Y, Z. Okay, so etc., etc. So these are the three main concepts that I want you to understand when you are dealing with Excels and formulas. Okay, these ones are the top. Let me see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. These are the top 5 most widely used formulas for accounting. Now, of course, there's many other ones depending on what field of accounting you are, which we will be talking into when we are going into the accounting. So in 2 weeks from now, you're going to understand that there's not just only bookkeeping and just using Excel for this. There's profit managers, there's cost accounting, which means you're going to be calculating how much it costs to manufacture something, right? Something along those lines. So it's going to be different fields and different things. So your Excel has the capability to be able to populate any formula that you need to get the work done. Okay. So again, by looking at the formulas that we have available here, you're going to go up to the formulas tab, and this is going to be called your library of formulas. So Excel is not just meant for just only accounting. It's meant for statistics. It's meant for just data entry. Okay, it's also meant to do a lot more than just that. It's if you need a table, right? It can be used for any subject. It could be you know what I mean? It has a vast variety of what functions, and it appeals to more than just one type of subject when you're dealing with Excel. So that is why this class is specifically geared towards accounting, what you're expected to see in accounting. Now again, I'm only gearing towards beginning and maybe slightly more advanced accounting. Okay, I'm not going to show you in depth because again, when we go into the introduction to what accounting is, there are more than one area of accounting. You would be mind blown to see how many different types of areas there are in accounting, and each one it's not going to be using the same formulas. You would be looking at different things when you're dealing with the different types of the areas of accounting. So here, if we go up to the very top, and we can see that each formula is categorized by a specific topic. For example, right, we have financials, okay? Now again, this is definitely going to be applied to accounting, but it's also going to be applied to financing. Okay, now financing and accounting are not the same thing. They're under the same business administration category, but the concentration of doing financials and doing accounting are two completely different things. How I see it is financing is for the future, where accounting is more in the past. So think of it that way. Okay. So yes, if you go ahead and just do the drop down menu, there are more than 150 formulas that you can create in Excel. Now, just by using this formula library, okay, so let's say I want to do a logistics, you have if here, you have false, you have things that you want to do, right? If and or, not if, okay? And then you can have text too if you want to search for a specific text. You have the date and time, and then you also have a lookup and references. So this is where the VLOOKUP tool is going to be under. Again, so if you just go down the drop down menu, you're gonna see there's just so many different types of formulas, right? And if you're just not quite sure what you're looking for, you can go ahead and go to insert function. And what you're going to do is you're going to get this little window here that allows you to search up a specific type of function if you don't even know what you're trying to do. Okay, so let's say I don't know, I want to do something that has to do with a range, right? I can go ahead and type in range, and it's gonna populate right here what the top ones that you would be looking for. So it's gonna pop. You can search up any type of formula that you feel comfortable for. So for example, I want to do sum. Let's just do sum, right? It's gonna populate. Well, do you want sum regular? You want sum if? You want some ifs with a plural? You got sum product, sum SQ. Okay. Now, again, if you're a beginner in Excel, using the formulas, the insert of formula is going to be by far the most difficult thing you can do. Reason being is because if you were, let's go ahead and do the if function, right? Let's go ahead and do the payment, okay? So if I go to PMT, right, and if I were to click this, it's going to show me this window here. And this is where it's going to be very difficult, because if you don't understand what it's asking you, that's your very first mistake when you're doing a formula. For example, it says rate. Okay, I'm going to type in my rate. No. You have to understand this is not just a regular rate. Down below, it explains what this rate means. So it says as if the interest rate is per period. What does that even mean? Right? So there's a little, I guess, what do you call it? You have to understand what the question is asking for you to successfully answer these questions for you to be able to create your formula. So that's what's really difficult about entering a formula if you don't understand how to use it. Now, what you can do is, I believe the best way to get around this is either ask for help under the help button, and it will explain it better for you. Or you know what I like to do? If I don't know how to use a function formula and I want to be able to know how to do it, I just go on YouTube and I type in, how do you use this function in Excel? And there's a whole bunch of tutorials on the vast majority of everything that you need to know in regards to the specific formula that you want to learn. So like just understanding this is like jargon. It's understanding the Excel language when you're dealing with formulas here. Okay. So again, that's a little more, I would say, more advanced, like not this advanced, but way more advanced. If you don't know how to read the Excel formula and how to enter in the information, then that's going to be the difficult part when you're doing formulas. But again, what I'm going to be doing for you today is I'm going to be showing you these specific ones, okay? So because I'm showing you how to do it, you don't need to go to this formula window library ever. Just because these ones I'm going to be teaching you and showing you how to utilize it. Okay. Now again, they have again, it's a lot of formulas that you can do, and yes, you definitely need to take Excel formulas class in order to understand exactly what each function does. Some of them are pretty straightforward, but again, if you understand the Excel language, it will be easier. But if you don't understand it, it will be difficult for you. So again, I'm only going to minimize it to the top 6 that are most commonly used, but also the easiest to understand. Okay, so again, so those are what the formulas you can use to be able to take the data in your workbook and answer a question based on what they offer you, what the formulas can do. Basically, it's telling you you can use the formula to help you sort your data in a way that you want to view the information. Okay. Now, other key things I also want to show you as well too is if, let's say, I want to do an auto sum, or I just want to sum up this entire column. Now what you can do is you can click and highlight it, and you can click the auto sum button. Okay, that's one way of doing it. But also, if you actually...
Oh, I'm sorry.
It's okay.
Sorry.
If you go all the way down to the right bottom of the Excel under your toolbar, you're going to see that they have a little section here that's going to give you a little quick analysis or a quick report of things that you would commonly see. So if you look at the bottom right, you can see that there's an average. So it calculates it for you automatically by you just highlighting the information. Okay. Now you placing it into the cell is a different story. Okay. But here we have the average. Here we have the count, and we have the sum. So here we can automatically understand that's already 3 formulas that you don't actually necessarily need to really know how to do. It gives you right there. The count formula, right, is basically says how many items did I select. It already tells you right there, 5. What's the average of it? Right there, 200. Was it 250? $270 is the average for this, and then the sum right there is already down there in that corner. Now that's just one way of looking at the information. Again, you're more than welcome to click the auto sum right here. And I believe there's another section, I believe it's on the home page, that you're able to just go ahead. Yeah, right here. You have the auto sum right here. That little sigma, okay, is your auto sum. So yeah, it's just a quick way to do to do your sum. Okay. Now, an easier also way to add up, let's say, a column, right? You would do name grouping. Okay. So that is where you have a specific range of items, and if you name them or give it a name, and when you type in your formula, you can automatically associate that you want to just get the total of this entire column instead of clicking each one and dragging your column to be able to find your answer. Now, there are many ways around it. It just depends on how much data you have in your actual sheet. Now, if you have like 1,000 numbers, you definitely don't want to click and drag all the way till you reach 1,000, now do you? Now, there are shortcuts to that as well. But I'm saying, like, if you just name that whole entire column, you just go ahead and enter in your formula, enter in the name of the column, and press enter, and you would get your results. Another technique is you can go ahead and click the very first one, Control Shift down, and that's going to get you every information till the very last information that you've entered. Okay, that's another shortcut. I don't really require you to know that. That's a little more if you're very tech savvy and you understand the shortcuts. That's just a shortcut that you can use. But I think the best shortcut to use when you're doing large sums of information is to actually name the group. Now, I also forgot to mention one more thing is at the I guess it's not the top, but before you see the name of the actually the columns, right? The letters of the columns, you have a formula bar right here. This is going to show you exactly what the formula that you're attempting to enter in the cell. Okay, so again, it's very helpful when you're utilizing that because it not only do you get to see what the formula at hand, but it also allows you to see what you're typing in that box. So for example, if I'm supposed to be in B3, if I start typing something in, it's going to copy that exact thing up there in my formula bar. So at least that way you can keep track of where your information is and what exactly are you entering into the formula. This also is going to also recognize the formula that you actually put in. So yes. And this is also where you're going to also be able to name your cells. So again, I'm going to name this right here. I'm going to go ahead and name this. So you would go to the left of the formula bar right here. So you see it's highlighted as as C6. I'm going to change that and I'm going to call this sales. All right? And I'm going to go ahead and press enter. So every time I enter, so if I enter it if I select it individually, it's going to be for the individual, right? But if I like click and highlight the whole thing, it's going to recognize it as sales. Okay? So that's called group naming or naming groups. So you're naming groups of information to help create your equations a lot quicker or make your calculations a lot quicker. Okay? So the first one I wanted to show you is going to be the equal sum. All right? So to add up all the information. Now, there are many ways you can go around this. You can simply just enter in a formula, and in order to activate a formula, the key is to do the equal sign. Okay. Now this is what you could do. You can you can actually click each one. That's called a cell reference. Okay. That's the first cell reference that you have. Okay. So, for example, let's say I want to calculate all of that information. Now, I can type it in. That's no problem. I can type in 251.54 plus 252.25 and press enter and it'll be able to calculate that whole entire column for me. But there is an easier way to do it. You can also, click the cell. So this is called cell reference. I want to add C6. I want to add D6. C7. I want to add C8. I want to add C9. And I want to lastly add C10. And there you go. I just calculated the entire sum of this. There's a way quicker, easier way to do that. So you can just go ahead and equal sum, right? Tab to activate the formula, okay? So tab and equals and enters your best friend. And you're going to click, hold, and drag all the cells that you want to calculate and press enter, okay? Now you can do that if you just want a specific portion or just a small amount of information that you want to summarize. If not, let's say you just want to summarize the entire row, you can go ahead and type in equal sum. Oopsies. See, there you go. I have my first error. Name. I wrote something wrong. I put an error in my text. So I'm going to go ahead and do equal again. I'm going to go ahead and do equal sum. Tab. Right? And then when I do that, I can see that down below is going to be pretty much, it's going to give you, oh, that's substitute. I don't want substitute. I want sum. Okay? And if I were to just go ahead and do that, I can see that it's telling me, well, do I want a sum of a number? Do I want sum of something? If I were to type in my first letter of my column, so I do sales, what I notice is here, I have a group name called sales, right? And that's going to be this whole entire column right here. If I were to click that, I can see that it highlighted the whole column sales, and I'm using the group name. And if I were to enter, it would calculate the entire thing for me, okay? So that's one thing that you could use group names for. It's easier to be able to get the information, and it also allows you to do your equations a lot easier. Okay, so that is the equal sum formula for you. Okay, so that is the first formula there. Now, what you can do too is when you have an actual formula inside a cell, you are actually able to use the fill handle to apply the formula in another cell. So for example, I want to have also the sum of, let me see. So if I were to redo this, because I have sales, right? I have a group in there. Okay, so I want to go ahead and click and highlight, all right? And if I want to, I can use the fill handle to apply the formula across. So if I were to do this, it's going to give me, there's my second error, right? The hashtags. It means my window's not big enough. There you go. So what this says is, I don't know why this has number in it, but there's nothing in here, but it's supposed to do a relative cell reference. So again, let me go ahead and show you the first example, and I'll explain what I mean, okay? So again, you also have the capabilities to actually type in a function manually or an equation manually, right? So my accounts receivable, right? So these are my list of my clients, right? We made a total sales for each person, right? And here's the amount that they paid. Now, what accounts receivable does is how much money do they still owe us after making the payment. So I'm going to go ahead and click my total amount of sales, and I'm going to go ahead and subtract, so use my minus sign, and I'm going to subtract the paid amount right here. And I'm going to get a total of 101.54. Now I can manually do that. I can manually have it if I have a calculator. I can go ahead and punch in that calculation right then and there. If I were to do 251, okay? Now I can also do the same thing if I didn't want to do cell references. I could do 251.54 minus 150, and I would get the same exact answer. Oopsies, I made a typo. See? So because I wanted to type in the numbers, I already made my first typo right there. There's no way that this person owes me $2,000 when they only originally had sales for $251. So that's why I recommend you to understand what cell reference is. So what you can do too is you can just click it. I want this information, and I'm going to subtract this piece of information. Okay? And I get 101.54. Again, this is more accurate. And I can also apply the fill tool down all the way. Now what the fill tool is, if I were to go ahead and look at my information, I can see that, whoa, how did Excel recognize that I wanted E7, I wanted C7 minus E7? And if I click this one, how did Excel recognize that I wanted C8 minus E8? That is what it's called. That is what relative cell reference means. Okay, so again, if you look carefully, right, the number is going to be a standard number, and every time you apply another formula, it's going to take the information that is either at the bottom or next to it. Okay, what does that mean? So again, if you guys remember from yesterday, right, because we created a pattern, right? Oopsies. Let me go ahead and clear that out. I want it to be E6. Okay, so if you guys remember, when we entered in something in a cell, right, and we create a pattern, what Excel does is it recognizes the pattern, and when you fill handle the tool, it will copy the pattern and it will take the piece of information that is next to it and it will calculate for you. So that is called relative cell referencing. Okay. When we move on to this part right here, oopsies. There you go. I messed up my formula again. If I do, when I move on to the 10%, I'm going to show you absolute cell referencing, okay? When you want only one number to stay constant, going down each one, okay? So this one, I typed in my actual formula to get the information I need. And here, let's see if this is actually true. If I were to sum all of this up together, oopsies, I spelled sum wrong. See, that would have given me an error code. If I were to sum this, again, you can click the formula that you want. And let's say I want to sum this up. Okay, so now it tells me that it's 700. So I'm going to make sure I apply that to this one to see if it changes. Yes. So it changed exactly how I want my information. So again, if you remember, this is the reason why it was different, because I had the group name sales, and when I copied the formula over, it just kept calculating the sales instead of the formula that I originally put in, which is to do the sum of all of this. Okay, so again, it also applies the cell relative cell references, because I'm applying a formula, I'm creating a pattern, and I want that pattern to continue as I fill my cells in. Okay, so that is how that formula works. Okay, so let me see. So let's see what other formulas I wanted to show you. So payment's going to be in the next one. Equal, round, and if. All right. So if functions, okay, again, it's a hit or miss kind of thing, right? So it basically can give you, sort out your information as far as what criteria that you're wanting to look for. For this example, I'm going to go ahead and finish off this column right here. So it's going to be %IO. So I'm going to go ahead and calculate that so I can be able to show you the next portion on how to use the if function. So here I'm going to get a percentage, right? So I'm going to be able, so in order to do a percentage, right, I'm going to take the amount that I currently owe, and I'm going to divide that by the total amount that I originally had. So that's going to give me a percentage right here, or a decimal point, right? So I'm looking for the percentage of how much I actually owe. And of course, each person is going to be different. So because this person owes me $342 out of my $542, they only paid $200. They still owe me 63%. Okay, and what I can do here is I can also click and drag, because I have relative cell referencing going on. And what I can do is if you see this, I have too many numbers. I just want a small percentage, a nice 2-digit percentage. So I'm going to go ahead and change it to percentage format. And if I do that, then it makes it nice and even and it rounds the percentage to the nearest percentage. If I want a decimal in my percentage, like maybe it's like 40.5, then I can go ahead and move my decimal over to show me that I have this. So for example, it's not 49%, it's actually 48.5%. Okay? Yes. And again, if you utilize this box right here, it will just format it for you automatically. So this is what I want to use to do as part of my condition. Okay? So what the if function does is it allows you to look at data and allows you to sort it in a specific way. So for example, I'm going to show you this. I'm going to have an if function, okay? And I want to say, well, if this number here, right? So my criteria is if I want this number is 40%, correct? I want to say if this number is greater than or equal to 50%, all right? So that's my condition right there. I'm asking, is the cell that I've selected, is it bigger than or equal to 50%? So that's my criteria. Then what do I want it to appear? What do I want it to say to me? In this case, I will charge interest if they owe me more than 50%. Okay? So that's why I chose 50. Now, I'm going to actually change that because, I'm a little, if I'm a businesswoman, I'm going to be a little more petty. I'm going to say if they owe me at least 45%, if they still owe me a lot of money, I'm going to charge them with interest, 10% interest. And what I'm going to do is once I've done that, I'm going to go ahead and put a comma. So I'm done with my argument. I'm comparing the number set that the person has accumulated, and I'm comparing it to a criteria, which is it bigger or equal to 45%? And if it is, then I'm going to say, charge interest. Okay? Oopsies, I have to put this in parentheses. Okay, charge interest. Okay? It's very important if you're going to use text that you have the double quotes. Okay? Comma. If they owe me less than that, then they're not going to get charged. So again, I'm going to write no charge. Oopsies, I'm going to put a space in between no and charge. And I'm going to end my double parentheses, and I'm going to also end my formula by securing it with the ending parentheses. So when I press enter, obviously this person only owes me 40%. They don't owe me 45%, so they're going to get a no charge. Okay? And then if I go ahead and apply the rest of the information, I can see that, okay, 63% is higher than 45%. They're going to get charged interest. Same thing with the next one. 79% is high, so I'm going to charge them interest. So in this data, I've created a condition, right? And I applied it, and I want it to show me an answer. So do I charge them or do I not charge them? Okay? And this would apply especially when you're receiving bills or anything like that. Do they have an outstanding account? Or if you purchase a specific product. Okay? Anything like that. Anything that you could create a criteria for. So in this case, I'm saying if they owe me too much money, I'm going to charge them extra interest. Okay? Realistically, this is not real. You're going to get charged interest regardless. But this is just my example that I want to say. If they owe me too much money, I'm gonna put more money on them because they owe me too much. Okay? So here we see that Lindsay Co. does not need an extra charge. So I can leave that formula by itself. Okay? But in this case, we have Mr. Larry Davis. He is going to owe, because he owes me more than 45%. So he is going to get charged with interest. So how do I apply that? So this is where I was talking about using absolute, okay? If I were to go ahead and click his total amount that he owes me, and I were to just multiply it by this cell right here, which is the 10%, and I click enter, and I go ahead and I pull down that formula, all of a sudden you're going to get this wacky formula, right? And if I look at this formula very carefully, right, it took the cell below it, and that's not what I want. And for this one, it multiplied this number by this cell, which no, that's not what I want. That's making all of my information inaccurate, okay? So this is where I use absolute cell referencing, right? So let's go ahead and recreate that formula again. So if you just want to charge that only 10% and not have that specific number move anywhere or take a different cell, and you just want to lock on that number only, what you're going to do is you're going to click on the cell that you want to change. You're going to recreate your formula, and I want to do multiply by the 10%, right? I want this number to be constant. So when I do this, I'm going to press in F4, so function key number 4, okay? And when I do that, I'm going to notice that my cell is going to have $H and $5. That is going to keep that cell, that it's as in every time it makes a calculation, it's going to use that exact cell. So I go ahead and press enter, and I'm going to go ahead and drag the formula out. And what I notice is it's taking 10% of every single thing, which is correct. Except I'm not charging this person, so I don't need that one. So if you were to look at the formula again, it says that I took this information and I took this window. So that is what absolute cell referencing does. It keeps a number constant. Okay? And then if I go ahead and double click this one, oopsies, I just added it. Okay, so if I were to double click this one, I could see that it took this information and it also stayed in that 10%. Okay, so that is absolute cell referencing right there. Okay. Now, oftentimes, if you have a certain number like this, right? If we were to really pull it out forward, I believe this should be fine, right? If we were to pull this over, you can see that, wait, hold up. How did 10% get me 54,225, right? You see all these extra numbers in here, right? So right here, we can see that, wait a second. This one is a rounded number. If I were to change my decimal again and hide everything, so I'm going to charge $54.23. Okay? Or I can just charge them $54.22. Now, this is where the equal round function will come into play. If you don't want to have all these extra numbers, okay, especially when you're dealing with selling a product, right? That is the most crucial one. Or when you're selling your product, you have to calculate what's called a cost of goods sold. A cost of goods sold, depending on what kind of costing method you use, whether it's an average, or if it's just a fixed number, you're gonna encounter this problem right here. Is that all of your information, whether you choose to round or not, is going to be adjusted because of this factor right here, right? Now, when we move into Coffee Cafe, in accounting, you're going to see this very often, and you're going to have to make the executive decision to either round now or round later. And when you round later, you need to make sure that you're constant and be sure that you use the rounded number so you can calculate your information correct. Again, Excel, so for this example, right, I calculated $552.25. I place this in there without the equal round, and it's showing me that my number is actually extended beyond that. And in reality, can you tell me, is there such thing as a thousandth of a penny? Can I go to you and be like, okay, let me count you a thousandth of a penny? Of course not. Everything needs to be rounded to the nearest penny. And that's what equal round can come into play for. So I'm going to go ahead and cancel all this because, boom, I need to change that formula. So my formula that I'm going to introduce to you is called equal round. Okay, so what that does is it's going to allow you to type in any function or any equation that you want. Okay, hold on, I typed that in wrong. Okay, so equal round, and I'm going to go ahead and click tab to activate my actual function formula, right? And I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to multiply my $542. I'm going to multiply that by my 10%, and I want it to be absolute. So I'm going to change that by using my F4 key, so my function 4 key, okay? Next thing is, how many decimal places do I want to set it to? Now, because we are dealing with money, I want it to the nearest penny. So I'm going to go ahead and say 2 decimal points. And in order to finalize your equation, you need to have an ending parentheses. And I'm going to go ahead and press enter. Now, once I do that, if you notice, look, it stops after 2 decimal points. So this is actually telling me right now I only need to charge $54.23 instead of $54.22.5. Okay, so do you see the difference between that? Okay, and because I entered this formula in, that means every time I calculate that 10%, it's going to stop and round your information to the nearest penny. Okay, so that is equal round for you. And again, if you don't want to see all these extra zeros, you can go ahead and toggle it up here and say, I want less decimals. Okay, which it's not allowing me to do. So I want less decimals. Okay, so it gives you the nearest penny. And that is what that equal rounds function does for you. Okay, so I went over equal round, absolute, and now I have 2 more functions to show you before I show you the PMT. So again, we understand that we looked at the shortcut for entering the date and time, okay? So it is up to you what you want to do. But there are functions and formulas that you can type in to get you the most accurate information. So in this one, because Excel or Microsoft, right, the creators of Microsoft decided, why do I have to type in the function date for today's date every single time when I can create a shortcut, which is the control semicolon, right? Control semicolon will automatically bring that information for you. However, what the function formula can do for you is it can actually allow you to, enter in data much more easier and much more appealing to you. So if you go into the formulas tab, you have that date and time. Where is it? Date and, oopsies, I'm in the wrong one. Function, you have the date and time, okay? So it's going to give you, do you want just the day? Do you want days? Do you want minutes? Like it's going to ask you specifically what you want. Okay, so that's what the function formulas you can do when it comes to time and date. But the one that I want to teach you, if you're not used to the formula, is I'm going to teach you equal today. Okay, and then again, if you want to, it's going to populate a little window there. You're going to tab it because that's going to activate the exact formula that you want, and you press enter. And that's going to give you the exact date. Now, of course, the easier way to do it is just control semicolon, right? And you'd be able to get the same exact information, right? But again, that is definitely something, if you can't remember that one, you can either remember today, just to type in equal today, okay? The other one that I think is most useful is definitely for packaging purposes. So if you are in the field of inventory, it is very, very important that you timestamp everything, okay? Or if you're just the bookkeeper itself, so it's very important that you timestamp when is the last time you accessed the file, okay? So when's the last time you accessed the file is going to be very important, and it's going to be equal now, okay? As in right now. When I type that in, it's going to give you the date and it's going to give you the time. And every time you update the information, right, this is going to automatically change. So for example, let me just wait till the minute is over. And so for example, let's say I added another person in here. I'm going to add Lisa, right? The minute I press enter, the time changes to the exact time I entered a new piece of information. So this one is, again, it's definitely useful for packaging, especially when you're shipping things out, but it's also definitely something you want to use so that you can understand when is the last time you opened this file. And when you open it, it's going to show you the current time and date. So every time you open it, it's going to readjust the time. Okay. Now Windows also can show you the last time you modified it with the exact time and date on it too. If you put your files under detail, you could see when you last modified the file. But for Microsoft purposes, this is one way where you can actually update the information and it lets you know exactly when's the last time you've updated the file. Okay. So that's a nifty thing that I want you to also know for for purposes of accounting. Okay. All right. Last one that I want to show you is going to be the payment function. Okay. So again, this is very useful, especially when you're dealing with bank loans, business loans, school student loans. You know, if you're planning to purchase a car, you have going to get a car loan. So this can actually apply pretty much anywhere and everywhere. Okay. So, but I definitely want for you to know this for future purposes, because when we do look into getting a bank loan, right, we can also determine what is the correct amount or how much am I supposed to make a payment for. All right, and quote unquote, what's my minimum payment that I need to make in order to pay it off within the time limit. Okay, so that is what payment is, the payment function. So in this case, again, it tells you that you just need the rate, you just need the number of payments, and you need to know what the principal is. But little did you know, it's actually a little more detailed than that. Okay, so the first criteria that a payment function asks is, what is the interest rate per period? Meaning, okay, most loans are going to be paid monthly. So you're looking at 12 number of payments. So you're going to pay it every single month. So obviously, this rate right here is given in years. So this is how much they're going to charge you per year. And what the payment function allows you to do is it's not gonna ask you how much you're gonna be per year. It's gonna be based on your payment plan, which is every month. So what you're gonna do is you're gonna take the 5.72%, and you're gonna divide that by the number of payments, which is per year, which is gonna be 12. Okay, so you're gonna get this long number. Okay, and then it's gonna ask you, well, what is your total payment? So in the second criteria, it's gonna ask you, well, how many payments are you gonna make? You need to calculate how long the payment is for and how many times you're going to be paying it for. So in this case, the total number of payments is going to be for 12 months, and you're going to multiply it by how many years you have to actually pay for the actual loan. So it's going to be a total of 60. Okay? So how this works is when you're doing your payment function, okay? So I'm going to go ahead and equal payment. So PMT. So this is me calculating how much payment I have per month. And again, I'm going to use my tab key to lock in my formula that I want to use. So my first criteria is how much interest rate am I getting charged per pay period. All right, comma is to finish that argument. And then the next thing, or that criteria, the next thing is how many total payments are you going to make? If you notice, as I'm filling in the information in my formula, you're going to get this little pop-up window, okay? And it's going to basically give you a guidance of what things you need to enter in as an argument or as your criteria. And in this case, again, if you don't understand what N per means or PV or FV, if you don't understand what those are, this is exactly where you're going to mess up your formula, because I don't have a clue what those mean. So again, that's just to give you a kind of guidance of how to fill out your formula. But in this case, I'm teaching you how to use the payment formula. So in this case, we have the number interest per pay period. The next section is going to be how many payments are you making in total, which I'm going to go ahead and click is 60, which, okay, I messed up my formula already. Oh, all right. So I'm going to go back to this. So I'm going to go ahead, equal payment. All right, I'm going to do my interest per pay period, comma. I'm going to do my total of payments, comma. And then lastly is going to be your principal. So your initial, or what your loan is going to be outstanding for, how much you need to actually pay, or what your loan amount is worth. So I'm going to go ahead and click that 30,000. And again, to end your equation, you need to add a closing parentheses. And then I'm going to go ahead and click enter. Notice that you're going to get a negative $576 per month. Now, yes, you can change it by adding a negative sign in front of payment, just so that it shows you a positive number. Okay? And, or you can just multiply that whole entire formula by -1. So that's how much payment, that's my target payment per month that I have to pay. Okay? And what I'm going to do is right here, I'm going to calculate how much payment it is per year in case I do an annual payment. Okay? So that means it's $6,000 per year. All right? And then I'm going to do it for the total amount of years. So I'm going to pay, what is it, times by 5. I have 5 years for this entire loan. I'm gonna pay a grand total of $34,565. Now, if I calculate the interest on that, so I'm gonna take my future value minus my original amount, I am actually paying about $4,565 to interest. And believe it or not, this is actually real life. When you owe people money, they charge you interest, and the longer that you take to pay it, the more money you're paying into interest. Okay? So this is how you can calculate your monthly payments, okay? And then so we know that the target is going to be $576. Of course, if you pay more, let's say you make payments of $600, then obviously it's going to reduce and it's going to shorten the time, but it's also going to shorten the amount of interest you're going to be actually paying into. Okay? And yeah, so that is it for today. Let me go ahead and check to see what other things I needed to show you guys. So we went to absolute. I went ahead and showed you some errors that you could have made. We went over absolute, relative. We went over the formulas I wanted to show you. We went over the naming cells, and we went over cell references. Perfect. So this is exactly what chapter 3 really involved, okay? So again, these are the key things that we would normally see in our accounting class, okay? And these are pretty straightforward, easy concepts, things to calculate. And this is just more of an FYI, like in case you have these errors, at least you'll be able to recognize it. And instead of asking me, Miss Lynn, I have a window that has pound signs on it. You should know this by now, that it's an error code, and what it means is that your window is just too small. Okay? That's all it is. There's nothing too big about that. Okay? All right. So that is it for today. Do you guys have any questions on anything that we just learned today?
Yeah, the one that you were showing on the payment,
Mm-hmm.
the formula,
Uh-huh.
uh, was it? I'm not sure whether the I'm sorry, either the payment or today now, something like that.
Uh-huh.
Where it says a formula that says H5, something like that. Okay, I cannot remember. I think it has to. I cannot. I should have written. Because the one that you were showing on the formulas, the very first one on the formulas, it says C. What you call this now? What's the formula? Hold on a second. The absolute and the relative.
Mm-hmm.
The absolute says dollar sign and then C.
Okay,
Dollar
so
sign 6.
this one, okay, so I'm going to double click it to show you, okay? So in this one, my absolute is going to be on my H because I want to use 10% and I want to stay at that 10% every single time.
Okay.
So in order to toggle that, you're going to select the cell that you want the one that you want to use, and you're going to tap the F4 function key. Okay? So again, in order to toggle this, right? If you look on every single formula, it's going to say that I'm calculating this number multiplied by the 10%. So because I activated absolute cell referencing, it's keeping that 10% as a stable number, as in what do you call it, a locked number to use all the time. Okay.
But on the one that you're showing next to the C8, C8 asterisk dollar sign H dollar sign 5. Where did you get that 5?
The 5 is the row. We're on row 5.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So H5 is this cell right here.
Okay. Okay.
Okay. Now, yes, you can type it in, but again,
Yeah.
typing it in can cause you to have a lot more errors, especially if you're not quite sure where you're typing. Okay, so that's why I want you to use the F4 function key to toggle between relative to absolute. Okay, so again, I will show you again. So if I'm doing equal, right, I want this number to be a absolute. So I selected H5, right?
Yeah.
If I press F4 function key, it's going to change it to absolute. Okay. Instead of going like this, let's say I want 10%, right? Instead of going into there and fixing the formula by adding the dollar sign, you can easily make a mistake there. You might be adding the dollar sign on the wrong side. You might be adding two dollar signs on one side, and it's going to cause your function to give you an error code. Okay? Okay. Also, one thing too, let's say I did make an error in my formula, right? One way you can edit the information is you can double click it and be able to take your cursor and fix your formula there. The short, oopsie, see now I'm messing up my formula. If I go ahead and click enter, it's going to give me an error code. Okay, so it's going to allow me to fix it. Now, another way that you can also fix your information is, I'm going to clear out the whole thing. Another way you can quick access to change your formula is when you click on it, you're going to click F2 on your function key, and it will allow you to edit the information right here. And you have two choices. You can edit it right there in the cell, or you can go up here and edit it up in the formula bar. Okay? I think that's one of the things I forgot to mention for the class, but yes. If you need to fix your formula for any reason, that's how you would do it. Okay? So, yeah. So that's absolute cell referencing. When you want to use one number that's constant, you need to kind of figure out, well, which number it is, first off. And again, you may, if you're not used to using cell references, so instead of actually, so for example, right, instead of actually typing in this all the time, I want, let me see what number, I want this, and I'm going to multiply it by the 10%, right? And then in the next cell, I'm going to enter in this number, multiply by 10, again, right? It's pretty much, you're doing the same thing. However, this is just a shortcut for you, so you don't have to do this all the time and enter in the same formula over and over again. It saves you a lot of time here if you know that I want to just only use this cell right here. You just lock it into absolute. Okay?
Thank you.
Yeah. All right. Any other questions? Nora, do you have any other questions about this section?
No, not really.
Okay. Tomorrow we're going to practice how to use these and apply them into a worksheet. Let me see which one I'm going to use. As far as chapter 3, not many of them have it set up like this. So I'm going to have to figure out what I'm going to do. Either have you guys download a brand new file or have you guys use one of the files that are already existing and maybe create one. I don't know yet. So I'll figure that out by tonight. Okay, and we'll just see what happens tomorrow. Okay. So again, we're going to practice everything that we learned today. So using the today function, using cell references, using the equal sum, right? Equal round. I want you to practice that because again, you will be seeing this when we move into the accounting. Okay. All right.
Okay. This is chapter 4,
This is chapter 3.
3. 3, that's right.
Yes. Again, yeah, the way the schedule was working was, I think you should have learned this later, after. It's not as